with trauma-informed care. Let's get them to a path to recovery. First, understand and accept. This is what we want to take them through, this process. But I need you to first understand it. So if at all possible, let's help them to understand and accept their personal history. If they're not interested, don't push. But sometimes having that connection with the strong side, the resilient side of their culture gives them a sense of, okay, yeah, I can do this. I come from a long line of people who can do this. If they push back, they give you a lot of like, I don't really know. It's okay. At least they're communicating, that's not something I'm interested in right now. It's totally fine. This is one of the reasons why we took you through the historical trauma. And it's another reason why we're taking you through the rise of communities. With understanding and accepting the personal history, there's a lot of things that come along with how they view themselves. We know how society views them. Think about what influences the individual. Their friends, magazines, television, religion, educational institutions, childhood experiences. All of those individual things influence how they see themselves. Maybe something you can ask if one of these areas comes up and it puts something in your mind going, oh, wait, this is a trigger for them. Maybe a question you can ask is, how has this served you? Has this thing right here served you well? Has your religion served you well? How so? Why not? I stopped asking about good or bad. I ask, does it serve you well or does it not? Why or why not? Whenever something comes up and I'm just like, oh, wait, that's a trigger. I need to dive into that a little bit. Recognize the impact of the trauma. We want them to recognize how this has impacted them. They know they're there. They know they want help or are forced to get it, either way. But sometimes you have to help them recognize it. When I think about some of the things that we were told as children, and then we get older and realize, ooh, that wasn't right. So at the bottom, I created this cartoon with the one that gets under my skin the most. Mom, Tommy hit me at school today. He did? Well, you know, boys hit you because they like you. Boys hit you because they like you. So think about that. Seriously, think about that. You are a child. Someone did something to you you did not like. You do the right thing. You go tell your parents, your protectors. And then they tell you, they acknowledge that you got hit. But it's because they like you. Some other things parents may say, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. That was a big one in our house. I have learned that even though what you have to say may not be nice, some things need to be said in order to keep the lines of communication open. What I had to learn is my approach. I had to learn the diplomacy. I had to learn to take the other person's feelings into consideration. But just because it wasn't nice, sometimes I just wouldn't say it. And then I'd suffer in silence. Another thing that impacts us, to me, especially in the Black community, eat everything on your plate. For a while when I was binge eating, I wouldn't think my meal was complete until that plate was clean, even past the point of full. And it was, well, you know, there are people starving in other places. You eat everything on your plate. Survivor guilt. You know, our ancestors didn't have this to eat. Sometimes they would go without eating. You better sit down and eat everything on your plate. I was conditioned to overeat past the point of full. When I got older, I remember my uncle told me, take care of your job and it'll take care of you. I found that not to be true sometimes. Trauma liberation. This is the part where we really want them to be able to breathe. They see it, they recognize it, they're on that path to getting past it. Ultimately, the goal is to liberate them from that trauma. So in doing evaluating, for lack of a better term, when they're talking about their relationships, especially if they're involved in IPV, I like to get an idea of what they think a healthy relationship looks like. So what I did, there's this grid. This is something that I would have them do. And this is something I want you to do right now, because I want you to go through the process so that you can experience perhaps what they may experience. So what I asked them to do is to look through the grid, and the top one is the governing values or the things that you want from your relationship. And at the bottom, these are things that you have to offer your relationship. Sometimes when I say, well, what do you want from your relationship? There's a long list. I want this and this and this. What do you have to offer? Or maybe they are and they don't realize it. And when you don't realize that you're actually bringing value to this relationship, sometimes abuse, you think, oh, I deserve it because I'm not bringing anything to it. Yes, you are. You absolutely are. So the goal is to get to your top 5. I usually have people cross out and leave the top 5, but somehow or another psychologically crossing some values out just doesn't feel right. So that's fine. So I'll just say circle your top 5 in both grids. And I'm not going to give you a whole lot of time to do that because I don't want you to overthink it. Okay, breathe. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, oh my goodness, don't ever make me do this again, and 10 being, it was a breeze. Scale of 1 to 10, how easy or difficult was this for you? You can shout it out. I'll listen. Okay. I hear somewhere between 4 and 10. It was hard? 1 is like, wow. So if I were to ask you to list them in order, those top 5 values that you came up with, would you be able to put them in order of priority? Because that's next. You 10s. And we're done. Okay. One of the most important things to know about the results of this exercise is that whatever your list is now will likely be different next year or the year after. Some people, when they do this exercise and they come back to me in a couple of years, they're going, I'm struggling with, keeping this particular value number 1. I'm like, why are you trying to keep this value number 1 if your life circumstances and conditions have changed? This is going to evolve as your life evolves. Sometimes when people take an assessment, they take the results of that with them for the rest of their life. No, it's not always going to be that way. You don't evolve that way. Another thing to keep in mind, whatever it was you were thinking or feeling as you were going through this, that's what they're going to be thinking and feeling. So that might be something that you want to address.